I have 50,000 subs now. Plex is awesome and everything, but if you really want to squeeze the most features out of your Plex media server, you can get a Plex Pass. Now, while there are many benefits to having a Plex Pass versus a free user account, my favorite one is getting early access to new features that Plex has not yet released to the general public. So if you're like me and you want to try out those new features, check out the description down below. Down there, you can either purchase a Plex Pass for yourself or a friend, and hey, if you don't have a free account, use my link as well. It helps me out. So check out the description down below to get your Plex Pass today. What's up, YouTube? Jason here with Jason Bytes Back, episode numero 13, which is 13, but in Spanish. So yes, 50,000 subscribers. Thank you guys very much for subscribing to this ridiculous YouTube channel of mine. I appreciate every single one of you, especially to all my Patreon subscribers. You guys are awesome. As always, if you are a Patreon subscriber, look for your name at the end of this video. Most likely you will see it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. On to the next topic. Let's talk about this year's Plex client Showdown. I know I probably talked about it a little bit before, but I'm about to order it. So if you guys have any last minute recommendations, Plex clients that you would like for me to try, definitely post them down below. I plan on probably getting a Roku stick, a Fire TV stick. I think I had the latest Fire TV. I have an Xbox One already. I don't know if I can really get into like a PlayStation 4 or anything, you know, super expensive like that, but I think I'm gonna get an Apple TV. I know I'm going to get an Apple TV. I was thinking about a Chromecast, but the thing about the Chromecast is that although it is technically a Plex client, it's more of like you cast to it, which is why I bought a Chromecast last year and I didn't end up putting it into the video because it's not its own thing. You're using something else to cast to it. But anyways, any other suggestions, leave them down below. And also, most of my questions today, I think probably about 90% of them are coming from last month's Jason Bytes Back video. So leave the comments down below if you have any questions for next month. So let's jump right in. The first question I have is from Hector R. Hi, Jason. I'm concerned about the ultimate privacy. Do it by Plex. What do you think? Well, Hector, I don't really have any concerns about Plex's privacy policy. I know there was that whole privacy thing where it was a little iffy there for a while, but I did actually sit down and talk with Keith, the CEO, and went over a few different, and honestly, I feel pretty comfortable using Plex. I don't have any concerns of my own. And I'm not just saying that as a Plex fanboy. A lot of stuff that he said was like generic things that you need to operate a Plex media server and be accessible outside of your own network are just needed. And I'm not gonna pretend to know everything about their Plex privacy updates or anything like that. But honestly, I'm just not really that concerned. So I'll just leave it at that. The next question I have is Swashburn0529. Do you stream your Plex content over the internet, any or just in your home? Also, how many simultaneously streams do you normally have? You have a beast of a system, so I was curious to how much you take advantage of its capabilities. Well, let's see. I do a lot. Okay, I do a lot like inside the home, but I do stream sometimes on other locations to my phone. Sometimes I'll stream something at work. I got a few people on my Plex server. At any one given time, as far as a high load scenario for me, would be no more than 4 to 5 streams at the same time. But normally my server is going to be running anywhere from 0 to 3 streams at the same time. And as far as it being a beast server, yes, it is slightly overkill, but that does not stop me from wanting to make a bigger and badder Plex media server just because I can. But I can't, at least not right now. But soon, I don't know if soon, at some point, I want to make a bigger, better one. Next question from George. I have a question. That's good. Although it's simple, I'll explain. My Plex server is PC to USB hard drive, movies and music, Ethernet, router, Roku. Every movie loads 13%, 33%, 99%. It takes about 10 seconds, but I always wondered why. Well, that is kind of a loaded question with a ton of different variables that could affect why it takes 10 seconds to load. Sometimes my Xbox One itself can take anywhere between 5 to 8 seconds to load. Now, this could be due in part of the size of your files to the slowness of your hard drive. But one thing that did stand out is that you said you have a USB hard drive. And in my personal experience, and this is not any kind of technical expertise here, but in my personal experiences, when I'm using a detachable USB hard drive, one that I actually use all the time, but I keep it in its USB case just so I can keep it portable. When I do use that, I do sometimes notice with Windows 10 that it does use some high CPU. So maybe, possibly, depending on what OS you're running and what your specs are and how your hard drive is doing, maybe there's a little bit of lag added because you're using a USB drive. Now this is of course assuming that you're running an SSD for your transcoding directory. If not, that could be another thing. If you're running a rusty disk as your transcoding folder from another rusty disk, well, you could be getting a little bit of lag from that too. Rusty disk, rusty disk, rusty disk, rusty disk, rusty disk, rusty disk. I didn't think I could do that, but I did. Next question is from James. If you had to choose hardware for a home build server using used server parts, what would you choose and why? James, honestly, I mean, I don't know all the different server stuff out there, but I would get on eBay and I would look to see what is available. And then I would look at what the reviews or what the capabilities are of whatever I found that was basically pre-made, but just, you know, like used enterprise grade gear. Essentially the exact same thing that I did with Zeus. Found something that I want, read some reviews, saw what it's capable of, made a couple compromises, made a few tweaks of my own once I got it, but I started from scratch and that's where I was. And if I really wanted to, you know, make sure I did it right, spend their good money and not mess something up, I would also get on something like the Reddit Home Lab, little subreddit that they have where you can basically post what you're looking to get. And you can actually get some pretty good ideas from people who actually have real experience with stuff like this and can tell you maybe some do's and don'ts, if that's what you're trying to do is build a server. Next question is from Adam. Now that UHD 4K Blu-rays are rippable, have you tried any UHD 4K files streaming from Zeus to Xbox One or TV? And yes, I know UHD support has not been implemented into Xbox One yet, but just to see if your system can handle it and there is no stutter. Thanks. Well, the answer here is yes. I have tried some UHD content, 4K, some higher bitrate, some lower bitrate content, but I found that my server Zeus can handle usually about 2 streams at once. Not gonna lie, they load sometimes a little slowly, especially if you want to change the quality or transcode it or something like that, but usually it's about 2 at once. And I'm talking transcoded streams here, not just direct play. Direct play is, well, it's actually pretty smooth. I don't really have any issues with that. Personally, I haven't tested it to see how many direct play, you know, the 4K streams it can handle, but I actually don't have a lot of 4K capable devices to stream from, so. But 4K and transcoding and Plex, that's kind of its own little beast, especially with the support for HDR. When you transcode it, you lose some colors. Might explain a little bit more into that in another video, but I have some 4K content, but I don't really use it a lot, so. Next up from Jersey's Tech Life, what is the best software that expands what Plex can do? Honestly, the best software, for me, really the only software for me is PlexPy. There's another newer version, I think is Plex Watch, if I remember right, but I still use the old PlexPy container. I think if I remember right, they discontinued it, maybe renamed it something else. I don't know, I've been running PlexPy for so long and I use it, you know, occasionally. It's definitely a very useful tool. A tool in the aspect of just being able to see what's been playing, what's popular, and well, really it's a lot of like, you know, somebody who I have given access to my account, I wanna make sure that they're not sharing it with their friends, which has actually happened, and I had to call and be like, stop that, it's not Netflix. Bastard. But apart from that, I don't really use anything to go along with it aside from like the DVR system, like the HD home run, but that's more hardware, and Plex just directly integrates that. So, you know, with that I get live TV, and with the PlexPy, I can, you know, really keep an eye on my server usage statistics. Next up, I have Black Dragon. How do you transfer your media files from your computer to your Unraid server with Plex on it? Now, I've covered this before, so I will be a little quick. Basically, the server that I built has on board 2 10 gigabit NICs. So basically what I did is I bought a single 10 gigabit NIC, put it in my main computer, and I set up a direct highway between my server and my main PC. I did it like this because 1, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying like a 10 gig switch, and 2, nothing in my house right now has any need for 10 gig connections. at all. So there's no reason to go full 10 gig yet and invest a bunch of money just to get a little nothing, actually. Basically, I would get nothing. So I have a direct highway, and I configured my computer that anytime it's accessing Zeus, it utilizes that 10 gig connection and not the standard Ethernet connection. Next question is from Lars. Hi Jason, does Plex support more of the same video in a folder if you have an uncensored blah, 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 blah? Yes, you can actually have multiple versions of the same video. Plex actually has an option built in for this if you wanted to pre-transcode or optimize your media before you watch it. So for example, if you have something like a phone and you're going on vacation, you still want to use your media server and you want to watch specific video files, you can pretty much optimize your videos or your movies or TV shows or whatever to where your server won't have to work as hard to make it compatible with your phone and or your internet on your phone. But to expand on that more, if you did want to have different versions, like let's say a director's cut or an extended version, maybe a censored version, whatever, you can put all of those in the same folder. And when you go to play that media file, there's usually those little 3 dots that you can click on, and then drop down, it'll say play a version. So yes, you can. It's not as like super simple as you would think. Like for example, I wish you could configure Plex as like an option to where when you click play on a video that has multiple options, that it would automatically just pop up and say, hey, which one do you want to play? So, you know, instead of like seeing like the file name or something like that, you could like name it, hey, you know, Back to the Future Extended or Back to the Future Director's Cut. I don't know, it'd be nice to see. Next question is from Mike. Hi. Could you make a video on Plex Pi and maybe a little something about Plex server in a car? I think I might have made something on Plex Pi, but again, I think they might have discontinued that and changed it to something else. I know I've covered Plex Watch, but right now I don't have any plans for making another video covering Plex Pi, but I might look into it. As far as a Plex server in a car, well, that's kind of interesting. First of all, if you want to do a Plex server in a car, the first thing that I would think is that one, you got to look at your power consumption. So you want to make sure that you have an adequate power supply for everything that you're doing without overdoing it. Two, you probably want to make sure that you don't have spinning hard drives in it. So that would mean it would be a Plex server only running SSDs, because if you use, hard drives in it, every little bump in that road is going to start to degrade your hard drive and your hard drives could fail. So with that said alone, it could get kind of expensive depending on how big your media library is going to be within your car. And honestly, there's like a list of different reasons why I think that making a Plex server inside of a car could be somewhat complicated. To go into it would, as you suggested, be its own video, but I don't actually plan on trying that myself. I guess I'll leave this question with this note. One, I don't have any plans for that yet, but I'll write that on my little whiteboard, and maybe I'll address that sometime in the future. But two, I would say that an easier solution is if you are going on a road trip, an extended road trip, and you want to watch certain videos on a certain device, either A, temporarily load that on that device, or B, try to use that sync thing where you can sync the media to your media player and it'll be hosted locally, if only temporarily. That way you could watch those videos without actually having to create an entire Plex server in your car with all of its complexities, and you can change that media file out as soon as you're back to Wi-Fi. Personally, I think it'd be a lot easier to do it that way, but up to you. Next question would be from Finn. What up, Finn? Finn Anderson said, what is the reasoning for it needing 2 network cables? Does it send video and audio separate on each of its own? Well, Finn, I don't know the technical reasons behind it. However, I can say that when I was reading through some of the reviews, some people mentioned that, hey, when you're using this particular device as HDMI switcher, it needs every single cable to transmit the data from one end of the HDMI to the other. Which I imagine it, and I'm not saying it is, but let's say I'm imagining it like this. Let's say you have an HDMI cable on each end, 4 little fingers here, and they need to communicate. And let's say, hypothetically, a network Ethernet cable only has 2. So if you have an HDMI here, you're going to need 2 cables to be able to, match them up. And I'm sure that this is in no way the way it works. But in my head, that's the way it works. So that's what I'm going with. Next question. Official page. Okay, that sounds very official. I paid for a Plex account on eBay. I have a username and password, but how do I add my device to the new account? Well, okay, I picked this question and it's kind of like, what? I picked this question because, well, one, adding a device to an account is just a matter of signing in. Like if you have a Plex server, you just sign into your Plex server with the new username and password, and it should automatically be added to your Plex account. Once you do that, you can use your Plex clients, sign into your Plex clients and access that. But that's not really why I picked it. The main reason why I picked that is that if you bought it off of eBay, it's like one of two things. Well, maybe one of three things. Either one, somebody stole the credentials of somebody else's Plex account and sold it online. Hopefully that's not the case, but I'm a very suspicious person, so I would always consider that as an option. Two, somebody doesn't use Plex anymore and decide to get rid of it, and the best way to take full advantage of your lifetime Plex subscription is to sell it on eBay, so hopefully that's the case. Or three, somebody bought Plex passes a long time ago before they went up in price, and they flipped them on eBay in order to make a quick buck. So that's creative. Also, you'd have to know that the Plex pass is going to go up. Hopefully it's the second one. Good luck with that. Next question is non-existent. All right. Well, hey guys, thanks again. 50,000 subscribers. It's because of you guys that I have 50,000 subscribers. Literally, it's you guys subscribe, so thank you. And something actually I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video is I finally have Gigabit Internet. I'm excited. It's only half Gigabit Internet, kinda. Basically, with Cox Communications, there's two forms of what they call Gigablast. That's coax Gigablast. That's where they use the standard, coax lines that are coming into the house in most neighborhoods to feed you these, gigabit speeds. And then there's fiber Gigablast, usually fiber to the prim or at least bare minimal fiber to the node. I don't know 100%, but basically what happens is that they're pumping out all this speed over the standard coax cable in my neighborhood so I can get a gigabit down, but I have 35 megabits up. So, yeah. It's actually kind of sad because I'm still angry at people who have true gigabit internet and they have no idea how good they have it, and they make fun of me every day and they make me cry, and I cry myself to sleep every night because I don't have true gigabit. One step at a time. That's what I have to say. One step at a time. Hopefully I'll have real internet someday. But for now, I'll have to deal with what I have. Well, anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe below. Thanks again to all my Patreon subscribers. Check it out at the end of this video to see your name. And you guys have yourself a good day or a good night or a good whatever.